Good evening, friends. It is Sunday evening, the 29th of November, 2020. And I'm still researching and investigating, and it came to me. Biden is associated with national security threat. What does that mean? Okay. And so I looked up a link, and I'll give you the link. It's Safety Management EKU Threats to National Security and How the Government Protects Its Citizens. Okay, let's just look at national security and see what it entails. There are hostile governments, there's terrorism, there's proliferation, infiltration, stuff like that. There's cybercrime, there's natural disasters, there's diseases, there's pandemics. Okay, disease disrupts, protecting against disease, biological warfare, botulism, anthrax, protecting against biological warfare, there's cyber terrorism. And I'm hearing today in several reports that Dominion and the program that it flipped votes from Trump to Biden was an exercise taking place out of the country in CIA-run server farms. They have them in Germany and they have them in other countries. And according to the reports that I'm getting, the German servers were established by Soros, and they actually comprise the original Nazi rat lines. Now, that's a rumor I've heard. I thought that was kind of interesting. So cyber terrorism has been associated with this election, okay? Whether it is or isn't, it's floating around, okay? And protecting against cyber terrorism is a function not only of the FBI and the Department of Justice, but also of the Defense Department. And maybe you remember a week or two ago, it wasn't very long ago, that due to some activities on the part of Joe Biden, the president labeled him as a national security threat, and that flicked a switch over at the Department of Defense. So something is going on there. And then there's national security and climate, and transnational crimes. What are transnational crimes? Transnational crime groups work across geographic boundaries that violate the laws of multiple nations. Because of this, they pose a threat to many countries at the same time. Stopping this activity may require separate national security agencies to work together, a challenging task given questions of jurisdiction as well as friction points between nations. Transnational crime may take a number of forms, including the following: the procurement of digital illegal goods, including drug trafficking, illicit services such as human trafficking, business infiltration, and racketeering. And let's think about the millions of counterfeit ballots that were produced in China and shipped into the United States for this election, okay? Let's think about Mr. Biden's associations in Ukraine when he got a loan for Ukraine because they halted an investigation into his son's business dealings with Burisma. We hear about Mr. Biden's associations with Chinese companies, which, because he has profited tremendously, is in the league of racketeering. Now, I've asked the question before. All of these things about Mr. Biden have been known for weeks or months, years. Why was Mr. Biden allowed to run as a candidate when he is a principal in, well, he's being indicted by Ukraine already in that bribery deal to keep his son from being investigated in the Burisma deal. Okay. He's already indicted in that. His election is associated with massive cyber crimes. Okay. And he's always been a partisan and a backer and a friend of the Chinese vulture capitalists who ripped businesses out of the United States and sent them to China. So he's not perceived as being friendly with American business. I've always wondered why he was allowed to run. But now the election is still getting counted up, and we know about the cyber crimes and the 5 to 10 million counterfeit ballots and the the Dominion computer glitches, they call it, but actually I saw a video in which one of the principals of Dominion explained how it is that they can flip votes from one candidate to another. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. And so I'm listening today to General McInerney and General Flynn, and they are talking about the situation we're in, of course, but not as an election problem. The election is almost moot at this point. When you have an individual who's charged with cyber crimes, bribery, and influence peddling, it doesn't matter what they might have been or might be elected to. Get that? Mr. Biden did not win the election because he cheated. Right? He cheated wholesale, as they say. And for all of his pretenses and pretensions and wishes and puffery and staging of staff meetings and staging of appointees and the staging of this and staging of that as a presumed president-elect, he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. And now that he has a twisted ankle, I would not be surprised to see a gray plastic, boot on that ankle. And so to whom I'm speaking here? I'm speaking to my friends and companions and family members and people I know who sincerely voted Democratic because they didn't like Mr. Trump. And I'm saying to you, you really didn't pay good enough attention to the guy that you nominated because he's going down. He can't be. There's no way he can serve or act as or occupy the Oval Office with so many actual crimes being charged against him. And I want to appeal to liberals and people in the Democratic Party who mean well, because what Mr. Biden says he wants is more of abortions and more immigrants tear down the fencing and more of the business as usual as he's been doing it. And that's not legal. It's not lawful. It's a national security threat. And at this point, it looks as if the charges against him constitute treason. Treason is a serious charge. He is advocating the overthrow of our way of being a country and substituting the social scores and the texts of China with its cynical disregard of human rights. This is not going to wash, folks. This is not going to happen. And regardless of how the election court cases go, because governors do what governors do, and legislators do what legislators do, and electors do what electors do, Biden being charged with treason, unless he is then acquitted, which it doesn't look like he could be, there's no way he's going to serve as president. It can't happen. And it doesn't matter which way the election goes or which way the electors go or which way anything. He's guilty of some crimes that are serious enough that if he's convicted, he'll be executed for it. And I just can't understand how you Democrats and liberals haven't got this. Your hero has some very serious deficits. And he's not going to prevail here. And the mainstream media can't save him. Okay, and Paul Ryan, doesn't matter what Paul Ryan does, or, the rhinos and the neocons in the Republican Party, it doesn't matter what they do, because a person who's charged with crimes doesn't serve in the Oval Office of the United States presidency. It doesn't happen. It won't happen. It can't happen. So for those of you who are sincere liberals wanting change, legitimate process change, and yes, I agree with you that many of the methods in the government have been less than useful, less than helpful, less than civil, less than moral. I agree with you. We have a lot of problems to solve, but electing or trying to elect a criminal to the Oval Office is not the way to solve them. Okay, we're going to have to go back and come up with some other ideas. But having a national security threat in the Oval Office is not going to solve anything that is wrong with this country. It's merely going to revert to the protection racketeering and the treachery and the secrecy and the good old boy network and the bribes and the blackmail. Mr. Trump, our president, is working very hard to put a stop to human trafficking of children who experience sex crimes. Mr. Biden is known to be putting his hands on other people's children all the time. He creeps people out. Come on, liberals, come on, Democrats. Put your thinking caps on and get real. Mr. Biden cannot, no how, serve in the Oval Office as president because he has demonstrated and behaved as a national security threat, and the Department of Defense is going after him. And he won't beat that. I'm just telling you. This is Emily Windsor Craig. Good night.